Hey guys, Jay at Browder Performance. Alright, so we're going to talk about the forward planetary and these C4s. This is probably my least favorite part of doing these builds. This is just tedious, and I know you guys have been fed a lot of stuff about, you got to put bearings in a unit and all this and that, and yeah, there's some truth to it. I would say that if you're going to do one location in a C4, it's the front planet. And this is the piece that's most susceptible to failure. And I'm going to show you why it happens. I'm going to show you how I address it. And I don't know that there's much on the market anymore for these. What used to really be popular was people would take these and convert them from a 3-pinion to a 6-pinion. And I never did that here. I'll explain to you why, and I never conformed to this because to me it never really addressed the problem. So like I keep saying, number one, oil flow is critical through the unit in general, okay? That's number one. You got to have good oil flow. And I know I sound like a broken record if you've listened to the other videos. But here's the thing with these planets. You can take them and, roll the gears with your fingers and look at it and you go, yeah, this is in good shape. Well, a lot of times they're not. And let me show you. I had one here, and this is like almost every time. It's not rare, it's almost every time. So you have these pins. One of the things you got to do in this unit, a lot of units you can just put the planetary, you can roll them around with your fingers and look at them and put it back in the unit, and that's fine. In this particular case, or this particular unit, not the case. You got to take them apart, and it's just tedious and just a time-consuming job, but it's a necessary job. So you have these pins that come out, okay, and these two are good. And this one here, I don't know if you can see that pitting that's happening there. It's not terrible, but it's the start of a problem, and if I take a planet apart and all three of these pins are good, I'm a lot more surprised, than, I kind of expect this. This is one of the reasons I know a lot of you guys ask me, hey, I got a planet, I know you're out of planets. If I send you a planet, will you convert it to a roller bearing for me? The answer is no. And there's a lot of reasons, but I used to do it, but this here, I don't have extra pieces anymore. I'm out. And I'm not going to have these pins made probably and go through all that because, when this pin starts going, then all your little needles can be no good as well. So kind of the standard practice is when I pop this pin out, if I see this, all the needles get thrown away at the same time. I don't even look at them. I just throw everything away and replace everything. Nowadays, I'm a little more desperate, so I got to sit here with a magnifier because I'm getting old and can't see as good. And I look at every one of these, make sure they're not pitting, and if they still look good, I'll reuse them. If they don't, of course, I get rid of them. I just don't have the parts. This bearing, I don't know if you can see, but the cage starts to get distorted and crowned on them a lot. This I can get new, so that's not a big deal, but the two races that go with it, I can't get. So if the problem is just this and the races are okay, great, we're in good shape. But if the races are bad, I don't have a source for the races other than other planetaries. And the other problem too is, and I don't want to sound unappreciative, but people send something in like this, and it's like constant, hey, that's going to be there tomorrow, and then they track it and see that it got delivered. Then, hey, did you get it? Yeah, I got it. I got it. That's why you're calling or emailing. You saw it on the tracking. How does it look? I haven't even opened the box, man. I haven't had a chance. It's just, I know you guys are anxious, and you send something in, and it's like, oh, Joe Blow's Planetary came in, so let me put aside the other 40-something odd jobs I usually have running, not an exaggerated number, and work on this planet. Well, I can't do it like that. I've got so much to do. Make every effort to get everybody their stuff back as quick as possible, but time doesn't stand still because you sent something in to me. I wish I, could say, hey, look, I hired on an employee or two, and they just sit here waiting for a box to come in from somebody, and as soon as it gets here, they hop right on it. Well, I get a lot of stuff in, but not enough to employ people, and especially employ people that know how to fix these things. These are not easy to do. There's a lot of machine work involved. Assembly, yeah, I used to hire people to assemble these planets, and you can teach somebody in a day or two how to assemble them, and they can do pretty good at it. I'd do the machine work or something and have somebody just sit and assemble these. I've sold hundreds of these. When we had the cores, we used to sell a lot of them. I struggled for years because everybody thought the 6-pinion was better. But then finally people got the message that really wasn't better. And I think part of the problem is the other people that were making the 6-pinions just ran out of materials, and I still had materials. So, man, these sold really well for a long time. But I ran out of materials too, and so let me show you why these fail. I may do a deal, we've been kind of discussing this, where maybe we'll get a whole gear train together. All these pieces I'm showing you, and the drum, and the whole 9 yards. We'll get a whole set done, ready to go, and then you send your cores in. We'll look over your cores. If your cores are adequate, then we'll, just swap and send the whole assembly out to you. Because if you want to build your own C4, as I'm trying to show you here, it's really not a great do-it-yourself transmission. It's a great transmission to maintenance yourself. If you've already bought the unit done and you just got to maintain it, well, sure, it's pretty simple to work on. And you can most certainly put clutches in it and whatever, and washers and bushings and all that stuff. Sure, it's wonderful for that, but building this the first time, it's a lot of work, and you need know-how, you need equipment. So my advice to people was always, man, just buy the thing done. Just let me do it for you, and then you just maintain it. And you're not really going to have to put a lot of money into it in the future, other than just, gaskets and clutches and whatever. But, buying all these pieces, or, hiring a machine shop this day and age to, cut a planetary for you or something, man, it's going to cost you a fortune. Just buy the unit from somebody like me, or, there's a few others I'd recommend that, would do a good job for you, and you get everything done, and then you just maintain it yourself if you don't want to, have to send it in and wait for somebody to do it and pay for all that. But anyway, so here's the reason these fail. Here's your gear, and you've got these flat, thin, hardened washers. Okay, they just sit on top of the gear, and then they just ride on this cast iron surface. Okay, so what happens is, because these gears, if you look at them, they're helical cut. So when you put torque and load on it, it forces this washer up against the housing. Everything's flat. There's no oil grooves. So what happens is it gets starved of oil. And I know a lot of you guys have seen this. So this washer, it will wear, and it does it on the back side typically. On this side here. Not so much on this side, but on this side. And you'll see it. The gear and washer just eat into the housing. So once that starts happening, all the metal will fall down into these rollers and start causing, pitting and things like that, and so on and so forth. And before you know it, it's seized and junk. And this is why. So, so what's the remedy for this? Well, it's these little roller bearings, okay? And you put these, so instead of this washer and everything, you have a bearing here now. And it's going to do a couple things. First of all, it's no longer a friction washer. So it's a roller bearing, and that helps with the thrust load. And also, the oil now can get in between these rollers. So no matter how much these helical cut gears will force it, the oil's always going to be able to get through the rollers, okay? And then the oil will get down inside here where these other bearings are. So you're able to keep a fresh lube supply. So it wasn't really so much the number of pinions. It's just an oiling problem is really what it is. And I told people this for years. The 6-pinion planets they used to make didn't solve this problem. You just had 6 pinions that couldn't get oil instead of 3. Yeah, it helped. I think the biggest thing that helped on those was somebody's gone through them and rebuilt them. I mean, that was the best part about it. Because like I said, that's important. Even if you're not building something for big power, if you just take the time and take these apart, inspect everything, make sure the planet's actually good, and then what you can do, you just grind a couple of grooves on it so oil can still kind of get through. And just doing that helps, and that's something you can do for a lot of applications. So that's just a tip there, and you don't need any machinery to do that other than just, a Dremel tool. You break these apart with a hammer, and you replace these roll pins, and, you just requires a lot of patience, but that's a good option for you without machinery, and, you're still far ahead from just throwing the old one in there that might be on its way out. So I told this to people a lot of time, for years, I don't do a 6-pinion. I do a 3-pinion with the rollers. Oh man, I got power. I'm going to need the 6-pinion. I don't care if you got power. I've had these things in cars that had 1,400 horse to the wheels. This planet's never been a problem. Once you do all this stuff to it, it wasn't a number of pinions problem. It's an oiling problem. So here's one done. And let's pull it out here. And you can see that bearing up there. So that's essentially it. Now in the hub, I put a bearing in here. A lot of people do that. And then I told you in another video that I don't put a bearing on the forward hub because, on the forward drum. I leave the thrust washer there because I modify the forward planetary so that it doesn't touch that washer anymore. And that's real simple too. Let me show you that. So if you look here, this surface that normally would ride on that thrust washer has been cut down below this surface. Normally this sticks up higher than this. So once you put the bearing here, you're just going to ride on this bearing that's on the hub now, and this no longer needs to touch the thrust washer on the forward drum. and this only rotates in reverse. So unless you're doing a lot of drag racing in reverse or something, there's no need to put a bearing there. And I don't like to put a bearing there if I don't have to on that drum, because you're just cutting away material from a critical area, the area that holds the input shaft. So we want to leave as much material in there as we can and not be cutting into it just for a roller bearing, especially when we don't need it. There's enough work to do in this unit without making more work for yourself. Not the easiest transmission to do bearings in. C6 is easier. This, a little bit more work, mainly because of this front planet. And, you do have, the number 9 is a little bit harder to do. So, back in the day when I used to sell all this stuff a lot, people would say, man, this is just a lot of money, do I need all this? Well, let me give you a rundown of priority. So if money's an issue, time's an issue, what's most important? This roller forward planet is most important. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, rear planet with bearings. Why? Because it's got helical cut gears. Okay, that's your second priority. Third priority is probably the number 9 kit, I would say, which a lot of guys think that's first priority. Really strange. A lot of guys kind of obsess about that number 9. Not a big issue. I'm not saying it's never an issue. Sure, it can be, but it's not first and foremost. I've seen a lot of units hold up to a lot of power without anything done there, and you can do the C5 oil mods and stuff back there. That helps too. So if it's like a budget build, I don't put the bearing in number 9. Not a priority. Budget build, I might just do the front planet. And then I guess 4th would be this bearing here on the reverse drum. That would be, number 4. Now, parking gear. Don't bother to put a bearing on the parking gear. Complete and utter waste of time and money. Not really going to hurt anything, I guess, but don't bother. I used to know a guy I used to buy some parts from 20 years ago, and he was real obsessed with bearings and C4s, and you'd get him on the phone for something, and, you're building a C4. How many bearings you put in it? Oh, really? I do more bearings than that. I put the most bearings in the industry. You do the parking gear? No, I don't do the parking gear. Oh, I do the parking gear. Why do you not do the parking gear? Because unless your drive shaft's too long, there's no load there. Oh, no, I see all kinds of load there. You got to do the parking gear, man. He was real obsessed with it. Other thing was putting a bearing, replacing your selective washers on your pump to put a bearing there. Again, if you understand the gear train, don't waste your time and money with that. This is just something that some of these shops did, I think, that, let's one up the other guy. I'm going to throw an extra bearing here because it looks cool. Well, whatever. I guess it works on people, though. My philosophy always was, I got enough to sell you. I don't need to make up stuff to sell you. Finding things to do and, things that you actually need. There's so much of that. I don't need to find more work. I mean, there's plenty to do. So I can be honest about it and still be okay. I don't have to make a living out of selling rollerized parking gears for C4s or some nonsense that you don't need. I'm going to sell you anything. I'm going to sell you this front planet here with the bearings. That's what you need. That's enough right there. So, and I'll get into, I'm going to do another video, and I'm going to get into those selective thrust washers, set and end play. I'm going to talk about more about thrust load in those areas and things. And I'll tell you why I don't think it's necessary. If you, again, if you want to do it, feel free. I'm not telling you it's going to cause a problem, but you got enough to do in this unit. Why look for more work? This is just some kind of nonsense bragging rights, I guess, that, like the guy I was telling you about. It just, I got the most bearings. Well, that's good. You know what he had? He had the most 2-3 flare I've ever seen on a unit. I'll definitely give him that. Terrible, terrible valve body designs. I won't say who he is, because again, I don't like to badmouth people and, make enemies, but this guy should have focused on his valve body designs rather than his bearings. I mean, my God. Worst valve bodies I've ever seen of anywhere. I will say that. I would get people that, say, hey, I've got this valve body. I can't solve this problem. What do I do? I'd sell them a valve body, and they'd be like, oh my God, what happened here? This is not even the same car. Yeah, I know. That valve body just has problems, and they would never fix it. I don't know if they... Honestly, I think the guy was so stubborn he wouldn't listen. If anybody complained about it, he'd say, nope, it's you. It's you. Never listen to the customer. Hey, how could it not work with all those roller bearings in it, right? But anyways, I don't mean to get off on that tangent. So that's about it on this forward planet gear and hub assembly. And I'll do some more videos on this unit, and there's a lot to talk about on this particular unit. So, okay, thanks for watching.